taking time for your health. The African American Wellness Watch. Trusted information for us, by us. Dr. Mike Lenore and other experts from around the country and around the world have the latest on how you and your family can get healthy and stay well. It's time for the African American Wellness Watch. Welcome to the Wellness Watch. I'm your moderator, George Strait. Remember the old saying that you are what you eat? Well, if indeed that's true, why not eat the best? But what is the best food to eat, and why is it so hard to find it and to eat it and to stay on those kinds of diets? It's a struggle, but that's okay, and you don't have to take my word for it, because today we've got an expert, Dr. Narisse Kendrick. She happens to be a physician, but she's also a person just like you and me, someone who's fighting the good fight to try to stay healthy and eat the best food that we possibly can. Dr. Kendrick, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start probably at the beginning. What kind of a diet did you have when you were growing up?
I was born in Jamaica, so my diet was actually quite balanced. My mother was really good at making sure that we ate really good meals. So, of course, as a child, you never really wanted to eat all of your food. So it was a struggle for her, but she would get up every morning and make us a full breakfast. Of course, there's lunch at school, and then we would have a prepared meal at home. And our actually breakfasts were quite big. They were like porridge. We would have we have a dish in Jamaica that's our national dish. That's ackee and codfish, and then we'd have maybe green bananas that she would boil, and we would have that. So our meals were really quite substantial, but we ate a variety of animal products and stuff within our meals. So we weren't choosing exclusively, but we always had lots of fruits and lots of vegetables at home.
When did you start to get really serious about the kinds of foods that you were going to eat, the kinds of foods that you were not going to eat? Was there some trigger to that consideration?
Yeah, when I finished residency, I actually, as a gift to myself, my husband gave me a gift, and I went to Guadalajara, and there was a spa there called Rio Caliente, and there was a like a hospital that was next to the spa, and there was a nurse there that did iridology. So about 3 or 4 of us from the spa went to see her, and she actually looked in my eyes and she said, "Muy toxica." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And she actually gave me a bag of herbs. And I am not very good at drinking these herbs. I was never very good, even as a child, because my mother, at the end of summer, she would prepare us for school, and we'd have to do this cleanse, which my brother and I balked at every time that we tried to feed the dog, who did not want it. Anyway. But so when she said that, and she gave me, and I actually brought it back to the United States. That's when back then you could bring things like that. And I brought it back, and I really intended to drink it, and I just couldn't, because it just looks like leaves and bark, and something that I couldn't tolerate.
It sounds terrible.
it did not look appealing at all.
Right.
So I said, okay, if that's the case, then maybe I can try to clean my body out, my system out, by, some other modalities. So my first book I purchased was Fit for Life, and that's Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. And I read the book, and their philosophy, they did food combination. They did a lot of plant-based recipes and meals that were actually quite tasty. They did do still a little bit of animal product, but if you ate animal product, you actually ate it with vegetables. You didn't combine your carbohydrate with your protein, which in retrospect, you think now of a paleo. That was, and this is way before the South Beach or any of these diets came about. And I actually did really well on that diet, but life's get in the way, and you go back to your usual normal activities. So I forgot about how toxic I was and went back to some of my toxic behaviors.
But you stayed with it.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I kept a lot of the philosophy.
Hmm.
I still ate a lot of meals that were plant based,
Hmm.
but I noticed though that over time my food combination did go away. I really try to stay plant based as much as I can. The things that, as you asked, the things that I stay away from. I stay away from sugar as much as I can. I stay away from dairy because I actually found that I was lactose intolerant. And I think the majority of African Americans are. I think they said like 80% of us are lactose intolerant anyway. So you figure out what's the kind of what can you tolerate. I started with that. Like, okay, I could have a scoop of ice cream. But as I've evolved, the discomfort was never appealing anymore. And so I eventually, got rid of the dairy. So I stay away from sugar, stay away from dairy. And I really, really try to stay away from processed foods, like your chips and if it's kind of whole, like made from seeds, I'll do some crackers. But I really, really do try to stay away from those highly processed foods because the that's where it's most unhealthy, for you.
So as you said, sometimes life gets in the way. When it does get in the way, and you sort of, in effect, fall off the wagon, if you will, uh,
Mhm.
how do you get back up on the wagon? And do you feel any guilt? And if so, how do you get over that? Because that's the kind of thing that it's almost like exercise. People start out with goals, and they meet those goals for a while, and then something happens, and they feel bad about themselves, and they lose their spirit to continue. How do you maintain your spirit to continue?
I think over the years I just learned. I did start out that way, where I would make a mistake and I'd feel guilty, and I just go with it, and I'm completely off. And what I have figured out over the years, it's not perfection. And there are people out there who are amazing, and they can create a goal and they can stick with it and they never deviate. And that's not me.
When you think about plant-based diets and diets that are sort of different from what you and I were having when we were growing up, and the fast food diets and the processed foods and all the rest of stuff.
Yeah.
Are there any practical hurdles that you faced because you have chosen to eat this way and have this kind of diet? Or, finding markets that sell the things that you want to eat, or going to the restaurants that serve, or even the price of the foods that you buy.
Now, I think honestly, you can eat cheaper on a whole food plant based diet because you can get beans. Beans are very cheap. And so you can buy cans of beans. And if you want to go even cheaper, you can have the bags of dried beans and cook your beans that way. Vegetables, of course, I try to stay organic as much as I can. And you can go online and find like the dirty 12 or 13, that you want to stay away from as much as possible. But my philosophy is even if it's conventional as a fruit or veggie, I would prefer that over, say, eating animal products. Because even for my husband, I went to the supermarket recently and I bought a very small piece of halibut. That was $21. I could have gotten probably 10 cans of beans, and I could have had different, scenarios with those beans.
I just listening to you, and it's sort of the joy in your spirit about these issues. I get a sense that you really do feel a certain kind of personal joy in the fact that you can and have been successful at eating healthier.
I do. And I think part of it too is I also want to be an example to my patients, right? Because I hate being a hypocrite, saying to someone, well, you should eat this way. And then I'm not eating this way. So I think part of that for me is wanting to be an example to the patients that I take care of and say, hey, I know this is not easy, but start slowly, And I actually really love eating whole food plant based. I have more energy. When I'm done with a meal, I don't feel that I have to take a nap. Actually, I can move around easily, do another task. I really feel quite energized by my food. I can start small. I can have one day. If that's too much, one meal. Start somewhere, to incorporate this. And I just think if you start little and make, like I said, your beans and some vegetables and, small salad, you're full. Because one of the things I've recognized with plant based, I actually eat a lot of food because I'm eating food that is lower in calories. So they're high in fiber, they have lots of water. So sometimes when you look at my meals when I'm home, my husband has actually says, "Would you like a trough?" Because I am eating a lot. My salads are huge.
I'm gonna make a really bad pun here. You've given us a lot to chew on.
That is for sure. And it is true. You do chew for a long
That's right. This conversation has been great. And your journey has the nice part about the journey is that it continues,
Yes.
and I think that's a message for that everyone can again, pardon the pun, digest. Uh, but in just a few seconds, we're going to get some ideas on how to make that journey even more tasty. In just a minute, we'll have Chef Nikki Shaw and her recipes on staying healthy. Thanks very much, Dr. Kendrick, for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Chef Nikki Shaw. Before we get to those tasty little morsels that you had cooking on with some of your Instagram videos, let's get basic about this. What do you tell people who are trying to eat more healthy? What's the advice that you give to them?
Well, okay, so first of all, we have to wrap our mind around that's our goal. That's that's really important to set the intention, because sometimes people are like, "Ugh," they go into it like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to hear about it. When I go into cooking demonstrations, I have to kind of encourage people to look at the benefits, like look at how much you're about to improve your life, and the people in your life. So I think that's a big part that a lot of people don't address. We have to set the intention that this is what we want to do, this is our goal, and we want to be successful and achieve this goal. So after we get past that hump, and that's a big one.
Sure. Attitude. Attitude is everything, right?
Attitude is everything.
Now, suppose I can't go straight to a plant-based diet. Are there some good intermediate steps that I can take?
Everything we do is a choice. And you don't have to go straight plant-based if you don't want to. But it's also important to understand what exactly are the options and what it means. So just overall, vegetarians on average are 25% less likely to die from heart disease. And we know that heart disease is the biggest killer in the world. So just that statistic alone, and I'll repeat it because sometimes it takes you a minute to hear what I'm saying. 25% on average are less likely to die from heart disease, with heart disease being the biggest killer in the United States. So just to understand, a vegetarian diet means that vegetarians may eat cheese, eggs, milk, but they do not eat meat such as chicken, pork, and beef. Instead of meat, they lean on plant-based protein. Now, that's the traditional vegetarian diet. A vegan, however, is a different kind of diet. That means people choose to forgo animal products altogether, including milk, cheese, and honey, and exclusively eat plants as part of a vegan lifestyle. Now, it takes some real discipline to live a vegan lifestyle, but we have other options. We have a pescatarian diet, which refers to a vegetarian diet with the addition of seafood. And plant-based foods such as fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, nuts, seeds, and seafood provide your protein and your omega-3 fatty acids. And finally, and this is where I fall into this section right here, a flexitarian diet. And that just means that some people are more flexible and they try to simply cut down on their meat intake and eat diets that are primarily filled with plants, but with some animal products here and there.
Nikki, we all fall off the wagon. We don't always achieve our goals in a straight line fashion. If we do fall off the wagon, what are some of the intermediate or some of the recipes that we can begin to try to get back to our goal?
I always encourage everybody, give yourself some grace. We're all trying to figure it out in this beautiful world that we're living in.
A lot of people think that these pescatarian and flexitarian diets and plant-based diets are just bland. How do you make them more tasty?
What I've found that I really enjoy adding to my food is lemon juice, lime juice, grapefruits. Citrus really makes food pop. It really brightens it up and gives you a whole extra layer of flavor. And then, we can always count on fresh garlic, green onions, thyme, rosemary, all those fresh herbs. And sometimes people are intimidated by fresh herbs, but that really brightens up the flavor of everything. So I encourage people to really experiment with herbs and seasonings and citrus and even mangoes or tomatoes, just adding things in that you typically wouldn't try.
Sounds terrific. So tell us a little bit about this incredible salmon dish that you're going to cook up for us.
So salmon is one of my most favorite go-to dishes in the world. We're making a delicious recipe with Creole salmon and pineapple skewers. I know you're gonna love it. So before we get started, we're gonna take our 10-inch wooden skewers and we're gonna soak them in water for about 30 minutes. And I'll add some water, and this will prevent our skewers from burning. I'll take my skinless salmon fillet and I'll use the thick portion of the fillet and I'll cut it into 2-inch chunks. Next, I'll lay my salmon in the pan and I'll pour 1 cup of Tony's Creole style seafood marinade on top. I'll cover my pan and let it refrigerate for about 30 minutes. While the salmon is marinating, we'll cut up our fresh pineapple. Now you can cut it up yourself, or you can buy pre-cut pineapple in your produce department at your local grocery store, or you can use canned pineapple. Cut each slice of your pineapple into 2-inch chunks. Next, I'll cut up my red bell pepper into 2-inch squares. I want the pieces to be nice and uniform because that makes the end product look nice. Okay, so my salmon has been marinating for 30 minutes in the refrigerator. I've cut my fresh pineapple into 2-inch pieces, and I've also cut my red bell pepper into 2-inch pieces. I like for everything to be around the same size so that it cooks evenly. Now we're ready to assemble our skewers. So we'll start to thread our salmon first. We'll slide that down the 2 skewers. Then we'll grab a nice piece of red bell pepper, slide that down to meet the salmon. Then we'll grab a chunk of pineapple and another piece of bright red bell pepper. Come back again with a nice thick piece of salmon, another piece of red bell pepper, another chunk of pineapple, red bell pepper again, and we'll finish it off with a nice piece of salmon right on top, just like that. Okay, I've covered my pan with foil. Now I'm gonna spray it with nonstick spray. That makes cleanup easy. And I will place my skewers right on my pan. I'll preheat the oven to broil. I'll take my fresh lemon juice and squeeze it all over the top. Next, I'll take about a half teaspoon of Tony's Bold Creole seasoning and sprinkle it right on top. Try adding other vegetables to your skewers like onions, zucchini, or even mushrooms. I'll let that broil for about 10 to 12 minutes until they're done. All right, so I'm gonna plate it. Oh, this looks so good. It's been cooking for about 10 to 12 minutes and it looks amazing. This is a great meal all by itself, or you can serve it on a bed of Tony's Creole butter and herb rice. Either way, you're gonna love it. For this recipe and more, go to cuisinenoirmag.com and tonysacherie.com. Enjoy.
Chef Nikki Shaw, as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company. We're really grateful that you're able to, and honored that you share your expertise with us. You're going to help millions of people just sort of get over the hump of how do I start and how do I continue and how do I reach my goals of eating healthy. Nikki, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you guys for everything you're doing. We appreciate you for making a difference in our community. So thanks for having me. Take care.
You're very kind. And thank you again, Nikki. And thanks to Narisse for sharing her story as well. You can get all of this information on our website, by the way, at aawellnessproject.org. That's aawellnessproject.org.